Guys, what's going on? Howdy, partners, and welcome to Cereal at Midnight. This is our Westerns Spotlights Volume 2. Now, if you've been paying attention, if you've been a subscriber for a while, you know, it's been a while since Volume 1, Western Spotlights Volume 1. I'm going to talk more about that at the end of this video and tell you what's coming up next. But for now, let's talk about some Westerns. Just want to launch right into it. The point of Westerns Spotlight is to talk about Westerns. I love Westerns. They're one of my favorite genres of film. And I just want to talk about some of the things that I love about this. I've pulled a few off my shelf here. So we'll just kind of shoot the breeze about some Westerns I enjoy. Maybe you've seen them and you can join the conversation. Maybe you haven't, and this will make you want to go check them out. So let's kick it off with The Naked Spur. 1953, Anthony Mann directing James Stewart. Now, they worked a lot together. Anthony Mann directing James Stewart. Just because I'm choosing this film does not mean that I prefer it to any of the others that they worked on together, but this just came out on Blu-ray from Warner Archive, so it's fresh in my mind. I've just written a review for it in the last week or two as I'm recording this video. That's at CerealAtMidnite.com. If you're not checking CerealAtMidnite.com every single day, you're missing a lot of stuff. I post things once, twice, sometimes 3 times a day. Reviews, videos, all kinds of stuff. Don't miss out. I want you guys to know everything that's happening. So there is a review for this at CerealAtMidnite.com, and it's kind of fresh in my mind. But Anthony Mann is, I love Anthony Mann, especially when he's doing Westerns and film noir. Those are two of my favorite genres. Now, he would go on to have a much more successful, he'd end up doing some epics and things like that. But this is essentially a character piece, and that's what I love about it. It takes place against the backdrop of Colorado. Okay, so it's got these huge panoramic vistas. It's a beautifully shot movie. It's not a cheap movie. But Anthony Mann, to me, worked best when he was telling stories about character. Now, maybe I said there was no theme for this video. Maybe that is one of the themes, is I do tend to respond to the things that focus on character more than like grandiosity. But Anthony Mann really gets... See, this movie starts exactly when it needs to start. The plot starts seconds after this movie begins. Credits, we know what's going on. And within 5-10 minutes, we're off to the races. And then, so Jimmy Stewart rides up, he's looking for a bounty. He's taking a bounty to capture Robert Ryan, he's always great. He's despicable when he needs to be. He's, grizzled and defeated when he needs to be. I'm thinking of The Setup, wonderful noir film, directed by Robert Wise, if memory serves. And Janet Leigh is with Robert Ryan, Psycho, Janet Leigh, right? And then Ralph Meeker is in. We're introduced to all these characters within the first 10 minutes or so of the movie. And then the plot is get your bounty, get back to town with them so you can claim it. We don't know why. We don't know anything about the motivations for anybody. And then that's the next 90 minutes. How long is this movie? This is 91 minutes. And it has everything that it needs. There's something about economy of these kinds of movies. 50s Westerns were great at economy. They tell you what you need to know. They start when they need to start. Every character moment in this is we discover who these people are as we ride with them. And once everything has been resolved, it culminates to a head. There's no scene that doesn't need to be there. There's no action scene that doesn't need. There's nothing here that doesn't move us forward. And then we get to the end and it's over. And it's just so powerful. It's a powerful film about revenge, about hatred, bitterness. Go check it out. If you haven't seen The Naked Spur, you want to check it out. I'm not promoting any discs for this. I've already covered a lot of this stuff on the channel already, so this is just going to be me geeking out. So check it out. Let me know what you guys think about it. Let's switch to... trying to think where I want to go from here. You know what? Let's stay in the 50s with another one that I love a lot. This is Quantas. I've loved this since the first moment I saw it. I think I discovered this. It's a Universal movie, 1957. Stars Fred MacMurray, Dorothy Malone. I think I discovered this on one of those Universal multi-movie packs. I don't even remember which one because there's a lot of them, right? Maybe it's like 10 Westerns in a box set. Something like that. $15, $20. I think I discovered it that way back in the DVD when DVDs were the hotness, and I've loved it ever since I saw it. It's how do I want to talk about this? I don't want to. It's not that I don't want to spoil it, but I don't want to rob anybody of discovering some of the magic of these movies on their own. It's another one of those movies that takes it starts exactly when the story starts. And it's almost like a bottle episode of a TV show. Bottle episode meaning, for TV, like Star Trek, right? It would be an episode where, like, we got to save some money, so let's do a bottle episode where everything takes place on board the Enterprise, right? You're on the set you've already built. There's no, you're not bringing in any outside sets. You don't have to go build anything. You're right there on your set. Shoot for a week on that or whatever. You save a little bit of money. It takes place primarily in one location. So Fred MacMurray is riding with some bad hombres, how much do I want to say? They are almost like, there was a review for this too at CerealAtMidnite.com. It reminds me, Reservoir Dogs seems to take beats from Quantas, and I don't know if that's intentional or not. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because of course Quentin Tarantino was a student of cinema and film, and he had access to all this stuff in his formative years because of the video store. But you never see the crime. You see the escape and the aftermath of the crime, and then you see the criminals combusting from within as they turn on each other, and you got the one guy who wants to be the leader, and Fred MacMurray is the quiet. He's tough, but he's quiet. Like when you don't have to flex, you don't flex, right? You quiet authority. And there's more going on than is initially apparent. And I don't want to rob anybody of that. It's another interesting character piece. This was directed by Harry Keller. I'm looking for the writers. Screenplay by R. Wright Campbell. Story by Ann Edwards on R. Wright Campbell. It is just a really crackling, alive, immediate story. And Fred MacMurray is impressive because I champion him every time I get a chance, because he was one of these guys from this, studio actor. This is what we learn about these guys looking back, because I think we have a few actors that can do anything, but we don't have a lot of them. But the 30s, 40s, 50s, you look at Cagney, you look at Fred MacMurray, you look at so many of these people, drama, crime, comedy, family. Fred MacMurray alone, we've got noir films, we've got westerns, we've got romantic comedies, the screwball comedies of the 40s. And then, of course, he transitions into like My Three Sons and the Disney movies, the Flubber stuff, The Absent-Minded Professor. Could just do anything, could play anything. He was just the best. So Quantas is one that doesn't get talked about a lot. I think that is one of the goals for this series, is that there's a lot of stuff that gets talked about a lot. Like everybody talks about the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Everybody talks about The Searchers, right, with John Wayne. But there's a lot of stuff that doesn't get talked about. And so I want to talk about all the greatness. So this is a Kino Lorber Blu-ray. It's one of my favorites. I watch this, I guess, fairly often. Another Kino Lorber Blu-ray for a film that I had never seen until they put it out, but I love it. It's a spaghetti western from Enzo G. Castellari. Fans will know in Enzo's career, he's another Quentin Tarantino guy, which makes me think, like Quentin Tarantino is paying attention to this stuff. But this is Kill Them All and Come Back Alone. It stars Chuck Connors from, The Rifleman, a lot of stuff, right? I don't want to narrow Chuck Connors down, but I do his whole resume because that's not the point. But we know Chuck Connors, right? And so the premise of this movie is, it's like, so he's tasked with, let me refresh myself here just on the back of the box here. So Chuck Connors leads a squad of tough as nails cutthroats on a mission for the Confederate High Command to infiltrate an enemy fortress, steal millions in gold from the Union Army. So the beginning of the movie, basically they introduce this, this team, and then here's your mission. Here's the team, kind of like Dirty Dozen, right? Here's the team. Here's the mission. You go in there, you get that gold, you kill them all, and you come back alone. So Chuck Connors starts the movie. I mean, but like this is like before the memory serves. It's before the title even comes up, right? It's that like pre-title sequence. The mission is like, okay, you take this team in there, but you come back with that gold by yourself. Just kill them all. Okay? I love the premise of the movie is the title. I love that. And it's got this great, so it's super violent, right? It's if you know Castellari's career, it's violent and it's got a lot of style to it. We celebrate spaghetti westerns, right? Because they had that style. They had the larger than life. It's operatic, right? The Italian outlook. They're the people that gave us opera. It's big. It's baroque. It's larger than life, and then you add in the pop elements of the music and the comic book elements of the colors and the striking imagery. Everything looks like you're like, oh, that's like a postcard. It's just a lot of fun. And there's a scene where they're in the middle of a fight, and Chuck Connors mounts this mine car train, like a mining cart. Yeah, like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom at the end of the movie, they're in the mine cart. When he gets in this mine cart and like pushes off, and we get first person perspective. It's like we're watching Doom or something, like Red Dead Redemption or something like that. First person perspective of him in the minecart, and then he's like spinning. There's a scene he's spinning, doing a 360. It's just like pow, 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 and we're watching from the barrel of his gun. So much fun, such good stuff. So Kill Them All and Come Back Alone. It's a great Blu-ray from Kino Lorber, and it's got a couple of different cuts here. Let's see. I don't want to do like chronological based or label based, so let's jump to Silverado. Silverado is an 80s Western. And it's not a secret that they don't really make a lot of Westerns these days, and when they do, they tend to be revisionist Westerns. You don't really get a classic, just fun Western, like a heroic, larger-than-life Western. Now everything has to be, and that's just the way that it goes. Clint Eastwood would go from Rawhide to The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, all the Dollars trilogy. And then revisionist stuff like The Outlaw Josie Wales, Pale Rider, these are almost apologetics for the other side. They've done the heroism, they've done one aspect of Westerns, and then there's time to, you got to talk about like the toll and the human element, and Unforgiven is of course the last word on Eastwood Westerns, because there's really nowhere else to go from there. You've now completed a cycle. You've done the thing. That is an actor and a character going completely 360. But so they don't make a lot of Westerns anymore. But Silverado is it's an 80s Western. So it's directed by Lawrence Kasdan. Did he write it as well? Written by Lawrence Kasdan and Mark Kasdan. We know Lawrence Kasdan from his work on Indiana Jones and the Star Wars franchise. Lawrence Kasdan is blockbuster royalty for the 80s and onward. It seems to me, I know no inside stories about this. I've not read any books about Silverado or even Kasdan, really. It seems to me like he traded in a lot of his goodwill for screenplays during the early 80s and those big blockbuster hits to make a Western. Because, of course, he would have been a baby boomer, a 50s kid. He would have loved Westerns. And so it is as if I'm gonna credit my friend JB, he was on a video here. We talked about the Universal Monsters when they came to 4K. My friend JB, he teaches film. He said it's as if Lawrence Kasdan knew he would only get to make the one Western. So he put in every Western trope and cliche and beat that he could fit into the movie. So this is like the uber Western, but it's so much fun. We got Kevin Kline, Scott Glenn, Rosanna Arquette, John Cleese, Kevin Costner. It's a great Kevin Costner role. There's a scene where he's walking into the saloon. It's like an overhead shot. He's walking into the saloon. There's a bad guy coming at him from over here. There's a bad guy coming at him from over here. He just gets him on both sides. It's a great scene. Brian Dennehy, Danny Glover, Jeff Goldblum. If you want to see Goldblum in a Western, here you go. Linda Hunt. This is I guess I've imported this. I don't even know what the status of Silverado on Blu-ray in the United States is, but I'm not pushing discs. This is just how I tend to come to movies because I'm a reviewer and I write, I critique these movies. So I get sent a lot of discs to review. So this tends to be my world, but just see it. Go rent it at, I rent it where, if you get a mom and pop store, rent it there. Just rent it. The next thing I want to talk about is not a movie at all, kind of, sort of. So Lonesome Dove. So this was a mini series, right? So this is Via Vision's Lonesome Dove box set. This actually includes Lonesome Dove, Return to Lonesome Dove, Streets of Laredo, Dead Man's Walk, and Comanche Moon. Now, all of these are adapted from Larry McMurtry novels. And I've read them all. And I've seen all the movies as well. This is all Blu-ray as well too. I think this is the only place in the world that you can get all these movies on Blu-ray. Now, Lonesome Dove has a Blu-ray in the United States. The others don't. So I think these are the only HD transfers for this, like, anywhere. That's beside the point. The point is, Larry McMurtry is a giant in fiction. He was one. He's left us now. One of our great American authors, and Lonesome Dove is like the for its time, the epic Western novel. And I've read it. As I say, I've read them all. It is just so good. And they adapted it for television. And you might think, well, television has lower production values, right? No. So this has, I want to make sure I get the cast right. So for Lonesome Dove, it's Tommy Lee Jones and Robert Duvall. And you could not ask for better actors as your leads. But along the way, we've also got Diane Lane, and we've got Rick Schroeder, and we've got Danny Glover is in this as well. There's a lot of people here, and it's sort of a sprawling, like James Michener style macro Western. It covers years, It's really the story of these old cowboys who they've lived a long life doing what they love. They've been, Texas Rangers. They've been on the side of justice. And now they are living in a world that's, and this is a theme that I love about Westerns too, is the old guard who has outlived his usefulness. They are two aging cowboys who are seeing the world changing. The Old West is not wild anymore. It's been tamed. What place is there for them in the world at this point? And it's heartbreaking, and it's so well acted, and it's just human. And it's wonderful. And I watched it when it was new, and I think it's 89. I don't do your own research. I think it's 87. Watched it when it was new, and I've always loved it. None of the other sequels, or there's prequels as well. None of them rise to the heights of the original Lonesome Dove. Really something special. The TV miniseries, I think it's 6 hours. I think it was a 3-night affair. It still doesn't capture everything, because how could it? The novel is over 1,000 pages, I believe. It doesn't capture everything, but it captures enough, and it's great. So if you haven't seen that, please watch Lonesome Dove. And then, yeah, let's do that. I was like, do I go here? Westerns can take the guise of something else. I know that there are a lot of people who like to put these very tight boxes around things. They like to categorize everything. And they would say, well, you can't have a Western if it takes place without a horse, if it's not in the American West. So like that removes Australia, that removes Canada, it's like all this stuff. So, Canadian Pacific, that's off the table. Clay Pigeons. I'm saying all that to get to Clay Pigeons, which is a modern Western. This is a 90s movie. It's 1998. It's directed by David Dobkin, who would go to like comedy heights, right? But this is not a comedy. It's Vince Vaughn, the beginning of his love affair with Vince Vaughn, I guess. But Vince Vaughn, Joaquin Phoenix, Janine Garofalo. It is a modern Western noir. It takes place in where are they? I want to say they're in Arizona, but I'm not actually sure, because it's been a while since I've actually watched this. They're in the West. They're in the desert. They're in the West. And Joaquin Phoenix is sort of I say it's a Western noir, because we have the Western themes of stranger rides into town, there's murder, there's distrust, there's justice, there's all this stuff. There's the law, but there's also this inevitability. And a lot of the 50s Westerns would have that noose that was constantly tightening around the protagonist's neck. That post-World War II dread, whatever. It's all here. It's all here. And this movie's, this is not a perfect movie. It's not, it's so critically acclaimed. I just like it a lot. I think it's a pretty fantastic movie. I do think that it's a Western, though it does take place in the 90s. And I wanted to include that here, because I think that if you open up your scope beyond the expectations of, where's the horses? or where's the what exactly is it? So if a Western takes place in 1920, is that not a Western? Because I don't put boundaries like that on things. I look at themes, I look at characters, I look at the beats and the structure of a story. And check out Clay Pigeons if you haven't. Now we're going to end on a lighthearted note because I wanted to covered a lot of ground here, but there's also a place for the Western comedy as well, and I love that stuff too. So from 1948, let's talk briefly about Bob Hope and Jane Russell, the magnificent Jane Russell. In Paleface, Bob Hope is a coward in this. He's a dentist, and it is one of those like, oh, you're in way over your head. It was built around Bob Hope's comedy, and it's. Well, I'll talk a little. I'm already transitioning into the next thing. This was a really big hit. This got a sequel, Son of Paleface, but it's fun for what it is. I love Bob Hope and I love Jane Russell, and I've come to appreciate Bob Hope more and more for the giant that he was in the industry for decades. I mean, absolutely decades. And it would be wrong of me to dismiss something like this because it's not a serious Western. I wanted to have some room for fun, for some lighter hearted stuff here. So I wanted to include this, but this was remade later in a version that I like. I'm looking for the year on this. I'm just going to say the 60s. Where are you? 1968. So 20 years later, this was remade, repackaged with a different star, but it's the exact same idea, same story. Shakiest gun in the West. Don Knotts, the real star of the Andy Griffith Show, the foil to Andy Griffith's Straight Man. It's essentially the exact same idea. So, dentist, he's bringing dentistry to the West, and it's more my taste because it's 60s, and so it's got like that 60s. I don't even know how I want to. It just feels like a different time. It's a little bit wilder. Like Ghost and Mr. Chicken, right? It's got that. It's like he's driving into town at the beginning of that movie, and you've got like this guitar. It's like down, 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 down. It's got this sensibility, this almost like swinging, let's have fun sensibility, and I love this. But you can't talk about the shakiest gun in the West without talking about Paleface because it's the same thing. So check them both out. You don't have to choose one over the other. Check them both out. You can see how certain things were kept, how they kept certain ideas and evolved them for another, 20 years later. They're like, well, this worked, but let's update this. Have you seen either one of them? Let's talk about these movies in the comments below. So that's all I've got for this Western Spotlight. Honestly, it went longer than I thought it was going to go. Why has it been so long? It's been 2.5 years between Volume 1 and Volume 2. Part of it is because I set a bar for myself with Western Spotlight 1 that it ended up intimidating me because I wanted to talk about Westerns that not a whole lot of other people... First of all, not a lot of people are talking about Westerns anyway. They may talk about new releases, and we cover the new releases too, or I cover the new releases. I say we because you're here with me. But it's not a... It's a genre that is regaining popularity as film fandom digs deeper into the new generations. But Westerns are still not something that's covered a lot. So with that Volume 1, I was really talking about things that I was like, here's the off the beaten path hits. And I was trying to do a well-curated spectrum of like, the Italian, the American, the legendary, the what. And I'm removing that. That's one of the reasons that it took me so long. Also because there's so many new releases coming out all the time. And because Serial at Midnight can really, like if I'm not really on top of something, all these new releases start coming in, have these different ideas for different things, opportunities pop up. Time can pass so fast. I can't believe it was 2.5 years ago. So here's what we're going to do moving forward. There are so many Westerns coming out on disc all the time. 6 a month, if not more. So we're living in the best, I say a lot, this is the best of all possible futures for the stuff that we like to talk about here. So with that being said, I'm just going to start covering new releases here as well. I'll throw in some of my favorites. These are some of my favorites. I'll throw in some of my favorites. We'll cover a new release or 3 or 4. This will just be a hub for us to talk about Westerns. And they don't all have to be Heath's chosen picks, right? will just be a dedicated place for us to talk about Westerns and to celebrate them. Because man, we got it so good. Just in the last month to 2 months, we've got several Bronson titles that came out. We've got several. There's Italian stuff coming out. There's Kino Lorber continues to put out Westerns. It is unbelievable. This stuff is hitting so fast and so hard. So, Western Spotlights Volume 3 will not be 2.5 years from now. Stay tuned. It's coming soon. So, guys, thank you so much for this. Let's talk about these movies in the comments below. What are some of your recommendations? There will be people that see this video who have never watched a Western. Westerns are not a genre that people come to usually as a gateway. Horror does that. Giallo, those are the things that tend to bring people to older movies. Westerns is not a gateway genre. It's sort of an acquired taste. It's like a 2.0, right? It's not the entry level. It's a little bit more advanced. It's an intimidating genre too because there's so many of them. So let's share with the people that might not know what some of our favorites are, talk about them and celebrate them, champion them in the comments of this video. So guys, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. I appreciate you so very much. So take care. And until next time, here's where to go and what to do.